Hello, my gays and weebs. Now, I've already made 2 videos on this season, so we're just gonna cap it off as a trilogy and be done. This video is going to contain spoilers, and once again, I'm using mostly old cosplay footage as a backdrop for my ranting. I wanted to get more new footage, but life got in the way, and I'd rather just get this video out while this is still relevant so I and everyone else can move on with our lives. But for those of you who have watched my other 2 videos, sorry for making you see the shot of my sister slapping me for a 3rd time. Also, if you, I don't know, maybe you wanna check out the CMV that this was for, I'm still pretty proud of it, and hopefully I will be able to make another one once my cosplay friends and I are able to get vaccinated in the hopefully near future. Okay, before I talk about what actually happened in the show, this is some information that take with a grain of salt, but I think needs to be said before I get into this. So there's been some explanations circling the fandom on why we got this season instead of what we wanted. So initially season 2 was supposed to only cover about 5 volumes of the manga, but after the manga ended so recently, the Promised Neverland committee rewrote season 2 to finish the story and generate interest in viewers buying the manga now, because if they continued to adapt each arc in a well-paced story, it would take several years to finish this show, and the chances of still making money off the manga years after it ended is pretty low. Again, it's hard to find official sources on this, but it makes sense, so I'm gonna believe it. While the manga writer was involved in the process of season 2, pretty much all he could do was oversee the already rewritten story, and he's made it clear that he didn't want to have to change things to begin with. Why this is important and why I really want to talk about it is because it proves something I've already suspected, and that's that the changes made in this season were not the fault of Cloverworks, a studio with amazing talent who literally did the best they could with a garbage script, and is responsible for 2 of the best shows this season. The reason that we got what we got was because of executive money-milking decisions that sacrificed making good art that would satisfy the creator and the fan base for being able to sell more copies of the manga and DVDs of season 1 while both are still relevant. It sucks, and this is something we see in all kinds of media, not just anime. Promised Neverland isn't new to getting the short end of the stick. A lot of fans complained about the manga ending, but the reason it was so rushed was because it had to be truncated to fit the amount of chapters that the mangaka was contracted to by Shonen Jump, and that meant he had to wrap things up quickly. I don't mind the ending while keeping that in mind. Sure, I would have liked more time and tension and a bit more complicated resolutions to arcs, but I still think that it was satisfying. The anime isn't. At all. And that's a big disappointment, not just for manga readers who wanted to see the manga brought to life, but for anime-onlys who waited 2 years to see what happened next, and got nearly the entire manga ruined for them if they ever decided to read it. All of this just feels like a waste of fans' excitement, of the manga story, and of Cloverworks' talent. And I do not think this means we should send hate to the Promised Neverland committee, because at the end of the day, it's the industry's job to make money, but I do think it's okay for us to critique this decision, and it's fair to have a genuine reaction to the product we were given. It was bad. The only moments that were kind of good were the less butchered ones from the manga, but when you compare that to the source material, all of them lackluster at best. Now that I look at the season as a whole, I can confidently say the first 3 episodes were really good. Dare I say season 1 level good. And I think this is because those were the episodes that were left alone when they rewrote the season. The score is still amazing, probably the only thing that actually drew out emotions from me while watching. And the animation is good given the amount of time and money they allowed the animators to have. And that is going to be the compliment in my criticism sandwich. So there's one scene that I think perfectly sums up what went wrong with this season. The scene takes place at the end of episode 7. We have Norman sitting on his couch, thinking about what he's going to do. And it's kind of similar to a scene that I really like from season 1, where we have Norman alone with his thoughts, and instead of the show telling us what he's thinking and feeling, we're allowed to project how we assume he might think and feel onto him. This scene doesn't do that in the long run, but it starts off the same sort of way. The manga equivalent of this moment takes place quite a bit after he's already made up his mind, and the point of it was less illustrating where he was going to go, but the fact that he had nothing left to lose. When the scene happens in the manga, we already understand the lambda sickness for the most part, but most of what we get in the anime is just seeing Barbara's seizure and the statement that this kind of reaction is usual. We don't see anyone else go through this, so it's less understood that all of them have this sickness, and having this moment so close to that moment doesn't really give us enough time or information to build the suspense, or understand the Lambda crew at all. Because what's important about the sickness is a plot point that we first need to understand with them is that it's an expiration date that the demon world placed on these kids. It shows that they're desperate, and because of that they're willing to do desperate things like demon genocide because what they're fighting for isn't something they think they're going to see. Norman discourages the whole we're all gonna die mindset from them, but he understands that they don't think they're gonna make it out of this alive. But they think that he is going to. He's part of the reason they're fighting, he's made himself into this pillar of hope, and part of his ability to do this, or take on this godlike persona, is the fact that unlike them, he's not dying. Only he is. And it's only when we realize the gravity and severity of this disease, and only when we're already judging and questioning Norman's actions, that we get this moment of him showing us that, no, he's not the one person who came out of Lambda unscathed. Like everyone else, he's going down with the ship. The anime tries to give us the same thing, but without any of the lead up, and like so many of the scenes in this season, it falls flat. But don't worry, the anime knows this. So what do? They replay the most heart-wrenching sequence from season 1, as if to tell us, hey, you remember when this show gave you genuine painful emotions and made you sob into the night? Well, we're gonna remind you of that, and out of nostalgia, you'll get those emotions again, and maybe think that flat crap we're giving you right now is just as powerful. When, no, it's not. This is not only disrespectful to your audience, it's disrespectful to what this show used to be. Because no amount of reminding us how good you can be is going to make us think that this barely developed plot hole-ridden nonsense is anywhere near the same tier. Don't ruin the beauty of season 1 by dragging this beautiful scene that we have already watched into your garbage fest. And in the same episode that you were referencing from season 1, you did the same thing, but 100 times better. And I'm talking about the flashback to the cup scene from when they were kids. A bit that was taken from a side comic in the volume release of the manga, making the beauty of how the sequence fits into the episode entirely to the credit of the anime. This worked because the emotions of the moment before were already heightened, and the content you were giving us was something new. But I guess that's too hard. I guess my expectations are too high. Whatever. This pissed me off. I didn't really see anyone else getting mad about this online, so this might just be a me thing, but look, I was prepared for this to be disappointing. But the whole attempt to play with my emotions by reminding me of something that spoke to me so well from season 1 just upset me. It's not a good look on you, season 2. Not a good look at all. And also ending it like it's some kind of cliffhanger. No, we know he's alive. He's right here having this flashback. And it doesn't even go any farther than the sequence went in season 1. Like, you literally showed us the entire thing without even adding to it. Which also means that we have only 4 episodes left of this entire series before meeting our main villain. So that's just great pacing-wise. Like, honestly, you couldn't have shown us the post-getting shipped out bit back when you revealed he was alive. That would at least give us more to sit with when he went on his little genocide exposition dump. It's just the order in which we're given information really frustrates me. Can we know what Lambda is before knowing about the sickness? Can we witness a bit more so we can at least have some basis for this child, this baby, wanting to commit war crimes? No? Too much to ask for? Okay, fine. Whatever. Side note, this doesn't matter, but Peter Rotary could have been hotter. I'm not saying that for me. I'm not into that or anything, but just, for a friend, that is a joke, but I am a little bit upset that anime onlys don't get to experience that weird point in the fandom where half of the manga readers wanted Peter Rotary to step on them, and the rest of us were like, his name's Peter? Really? Like, can you think of anything less intimidating than Peter? Oh. Huh. But while we're on the subject, or I guess around it, the Lambda sequence is fucking lit. I would have loved to see it earlier because, again, I think it makes more sense when you don't already know that Norman has already accomplished all of this, and it sets up Lambda to be scarier when we see it after Gracefield and in conjunction with Goldie Pond, going along with the whole idea that Gracefield really was just the beginning. But ignoring that and the fact that Norman and Vincent should have been way more subtle in their note passing, like, guys, the doctors can see you. Which is another bit that was taken out of a side comic from the manga where, yeah, they were a bit more careful. I think this entire flashback was an example of all the season could have been, and it's kind of sad to see it and then have to go back to what we've been seeing for the past couple episodes. Because here, they took what the manga didn't have the chance to fully show and did something cool. For the first time in this entire season, we got something kinda scary. Unfortunately, because it's a flashback, we do know that the Lambda crew is gonna get out of there okay. And I think it honestly could have been its own 23-minute episode. Actually, back before we knew they were going to be doing this with the anime, but knew that they were thinking about adding some new thing. I'd kind of hoped that halfway through season 2, we'd get Normda and Lambda as a side arc in conjunction with the main stuff Emma and Ray were doing. But okay, I'll take what we got, and what we got is pretty good. Not perfect, not as good as season 1, but a breath of fresh air before descent back into trash. One of the elements I really enjoyed is that instead of telling, we actually got some showing, which is nice and a little surprising when it follows an episode that was nearly entirely talking. And yes, you could argue that all this talking was in the manga too, but the difference there is that the manga had exposition and action intertwined. If there was going to be a big important conversation, it would also be joined with big important actions. If Norman was going to sit down for several pages and explain demon biology, it's after the visual overload of making it to the hideout, the emotional reunion at the anime completely butchered, by the way, but we're not talking about that right now, and seeing the world that Norman built. And it's followed by more events, not just talking about events. The Lambda scene is the best scene that we get with Norman, because for once in this season, he's action, not just words. And his actions are pretty freaking scary. Like, for a second, I thought I saw Minerva Norman in this child's eyes. It didn't last, but it was nice. And I want to say the same thing about the massacre scene. I really do. But I don't think it does as good. I do think it does a decent job of hyping up the stakes. That's of course not very hard, since they were very low to begin with. I don't think it's anywhere near as badass as its manga counterpart. Like, you show me this and I raise you Norman speaking demon language, but whatever. And I do think it kind of overkills the whole Norman's going too far message, but considering we had not a lot of time for that either, sure, you can go ham. As it bleeds into Norman coming back to them though, which if you watched my Norman video, you'll know is one of my favorite moments from the manga, it becomes a lot harder to judge the two as separately. And this just really feels lame in comparison to the intense chapters of Norman and his team killing a room full of demon nobles one by one, as Emma and Ray race to him only for him to say, "Sorry, it's already done." And them to have to show him he's not alone and it's okay to need help. And yeah, this hits the same beats, but it does it with so much less energy and emotion. And a backdrop of fire and screaming civilians that they do save, by the way, so it's a bit like, what's the point? Isn't gonna fix that. Again, I liked the manga ending. I'm aware that I'm not in the majority here, and I think it did the best that it could, but I do think that Norman's arc was the manga at its best. And while the ending brought us full circle and had some really badass chapters, for me it didn't hit as hard. But was still better than how the anime handled it. Because while the manga gave us a bittersweet lesson in sacrifice and letting go but not giving up, the anime gave us a slideshow. And everyone's kind of clowning on that, so I kind of had to also, but that was kind of more interesting than the actual changes that they gave us. Like, I would rather have a full 20-minute episode of these guys just road tripping across the demon world than the supposed catharsis we were given. But anyway, I'm not going to harp on how it was rushed, because it was. Or how that ruined it, because it did. The overall feeling I have right now is just disappointment. We're given solutions that are even quicker and sloppier than the manga ending, and it becomes hard to appreciate the moments like Isabella leading the moms against Rotary, or Phil being the truest, bestest boy that ever existed, when even those bits feel like a cheap imitation of what they could have been. Sure, the game of tag was fun, and the music accompanying it was hype, but put that next to one panel. One singular panel of Emma with a gun being backed on one side by Norman and the other by Ray, while every single living, supporting character we've collected along the way contribute to this giant scheme. Yeah, it's kind of obvious which one's better, so there's not really a point in me going into even more and more examples of how even the least liked bits of the manga is better than this, because I'm just gonna sound like a broken record. The best thing about the ending is that it isn't the same as the manga, and that means anyone who made it through this and wants more, or wants better, can read the manga and at least get that bit untarnished. Sure, the manga ending is nowhere near perfect. On a scale of Tokyo Ghoul Re to Code Geass Season 2, I'd say it's a bit under a Death Note. Not bad by any means, but does leave a bit to be desired while still following through on what it set out to do. But boy, does the anime make it feel like a Devilman crybaby in comparison. And if all of that made no sense, I'm basically saying it's fairly good, but the anime made it seem flawless. The second best thing about the ending is it means that after 12 weeks of this, it is finally over. this slap in the face to a great story and great characters is over. And all we can do now is put it behind us and appreciate its source material. Well, I'm gonna go reread the manga now and write fanfic. Maybe someday, if we're really lucky, we'll get a promised Neverland Brotherhood. But for now, at least, the fandom has been pretty great at generating content to peel ourselves. If anyone's interested, the next anime I want to take a deep dive of will be a lot less of me complaining and a lot more of me professing my love for Cloverworks. So if you're interested in that, consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys later. Well, I won't see you, you'll see me, because that's how this works. Bye!